Hey guys, welcome back to Mountain Murders Midweek.
I'm Heather.
And I'm Dylan.
How are you, Dylan?
I'm doing well.
You're doing well. That's great.
How are you?
I'm okay. Riding out the flash flood warning we have in our area right now.
Yes, once again, dangerous wet weather in the area, and we hope everyone is staying safe.
Yeah, it's just been one of those wet, gloomy days. I'll be honest, I slept like all day. I
It's
never do this.
it's been one of those moist days.
So I'm not really sure what's going on with me, but yeah, I slept like half the day. And now I'm wide awake.
And you'll be up all night.
Ready to party. Exactly. I thought we would take a bit of a departure from our typical midweek discussing true crime news, Dylan, and switch things up a little bit.
That sounds like fun.
We're going to be talking about movies that are based on real, true crime cases.
I always find those are usually rather interesting stories connected to movies like that. And a lot of times, what's interesting to me is how the movie's adaptation is, compared to real life, right?
Yeah.
That make any sense?
No, it totally does. I thought the first movie we could start off with is My Friend Dahmer.
Oh, yeah. I actually enjoyed that movie.
My Friend Dahmer is a biographical drama that covers the adolescence of Jeffrey Dahmer. He's a shy, very strange boy. And of course, we know he grew up to become one of America's most infamous serial killers. An actor named Ross Lynch plays the young Jeffrey Dahmer in this 2017 adaptation of a graphic novel that was actually written by a guy named Alex Backdorf, who graduated high school alongside Dahmer.
Wow, I did not know that there was the graphic novel.
I thought it was a really well done film, and it just shows you a glimpse into, I guess, a predator like before they hit their stride.
Yeah, with
Right?
the strangeness, the kind of the loner. He was a bit of a loner. He liked to have his own. He had his little shed out there, doing strange things, gruesome things with animals. And I guess it was a purely fiction, right? But I thought it was done in a way that made sense. That seems. I could imagine Dahmer acting like that when he was that age, right?
Yeah, I thought it was really well done. If you haven't seen it, I highly recommend it. Another film I'm going to recommend today is a Netflix film called Lost Girls. Documentarian Liz Garbus scripted the feature Lost Girls, and it provides a raw telling of one mother's investigation of her daughter's disappearance. And then what she uncovers reveals more than she intended. It leads to a series of mysterious killings of sex workers, all about the Long Island serial killer.
Oh, wow.
So it's based on the real victim, Shannon Gilbert's mother, Mary Gilbert, and her search to find out what happened to her daughter.
Yeah, I think we watched this, and this was really my first introduction to this the Long Island serial killer. I think, and it made me curious, and it certainly is a very big, complicated story and case.
It stars Amy Ryan. A lot of folks might know her from The Office, and I liked her on The Wire. Obviously, one of my all-time favorite shows. I bring it up all the time.
I love The Wire.
The Wire was great.
Uh-huh.
But I think she does a really good job. Definitely recommend that film. Another is All Good Things. Have you heard of this before, Dylan?
I don't know.
Well, Ryan Gosling. I know you love Ryan Gosling.
He's so serious.
You think he's hot, don't you?
No, I don't think he's hot.
You do. He does.
I don't think he's hot. You said, well, he did a good job in the new Blade Runner.
He stars as Robert Durst.
Oh.
The son of a New York real estate tycoon who becomes the suspect behind a series of murders, including that of his own wife, who is portrayed by Kirsten Dunst. Among the film's acclaim was praise from none other than Robert Durst himself, who eventually agreed to an interview with the film's director after the movie was made.
Durst. I don't understand. He still was making films and getting some acclaim after these charges, right? Am I right on that?
Well, he was on the HBO docuseries The Jinx.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the only thing I know of.
Okay. I think I'm getting this crossed up with somebody else. I'm sorry. True Dylan fashion.
All the time.
Yeah.
So most true crime fans will be familiar with the West Memphis 3 case, probably because you are familiar with HBO's Paradise Lost docuseries. The documentaries, I think there were 3 of them.
Yep.
But for those who missed it, these events took place in the heart of the Bible Belt during the infamous Satanic Panic of the 80s and 90s. 3 8-year-old boys were found murdered by a local creek, and law enforcement turned their attention to 3 local misfits, believing from the get-go they were responsible simply because they listened to black metal music and, wore the trench coats.
Well, and they kind of been seen
Wrong
hanging out.
side of the tracks.
Yeah, hanging out in the area, and it's one of those things. If something bad happens, these are the type of kids you might automatically think had some hand in it, right?
Well, it's based on the book Devil's Knot, The True Story of the West Memphis 3 by Mara Leverett. And the film has a lot of big name actors in it, Dylan, including Reese Witherspoon and Colin Firth. The distributor underestimated the movie's potential and only gave it a very limited release, which resulted in a dismal turnout and a pretty significant financial loss. But it's a pretty good film, considering. Definitely want to check it out. It kind of breathes life into the often pigeonholed story, but it's worthy of, like a tribute to the lives that were devastated by the still unsolved crime. I think it's a good portrayal of what was happening in West Memphis at this time.
Do you think there will ever be closure, or the complete truth will come out about that case?
I feel like with familial DNA, it could eventually, but it seems the state of Arkansas does not want to try to solve the case.
Sometimes I just don't get it. We see this time and again when the state has their position, when it's went all the way through the highest court, the Supreme Court of the state, and they have their position on a case, and they just will not relent. And sometimes it seems out of pure stubbornness or just not wanting to look bad, and I think that's not good reasons to not pursue the truth, right? That's your whole reason for existing, is to find out the truth,
Well,
to
it
deliver
should be.
justice, right?
It should be, absolutely.
And it gets so political, and it really drives me crazy.
Well, this is one of those cases that has always just bugged the shit out of me, because it seems like the justice system has no interest in justice when it comes to this case.
Yeah.
Because they've denied appeals, they don't want to look at new evidence. It just seems like for years they have been fighting, doing any work on this case or trying to make any progress in actually solving it. And then, of course, there are always the handful of people who say, oh, those boys are guilty, the evidence against them. But when you really look at the evidence, there's not a lot of evidence pointing to them.
The evidence is thin. I don't. It's been a long time since I went through all these, as far as the docuseries goes, and we dug into the case again some time ago. But there wasn't a whole lot of physical evidence that I recall. Beyond
not.
Jesse Miss Kelly's confession seemed to be a cornerstone of the case, and I think it's pretty. If you know anything about coerced confessions,
You have someone with limited cognitive ability,
yes,
right? 18 hours, you're only recording some parts of the interview.
He's under 18.
I mean, it's just
he should have a
fucked
guardian.
up.
He should have a lawyer. Someone should be there as his advocate. I mean, it's very similar to the Brandon Dassey
Oh, yes.
confessions tied up in the making of murder, Stephen Avery. It was pretty obvious he was just trying to tell them he wanted to make like the last period of school because he had to turn a project in, and he's
right.
literally telling them, if I tell you this, will you let me go back to school? And they're like, yeah. So I don't know. There just wasn't a lot. It was a very strange case. And the brutality, I think that's one thing that gets lost in that story, is the brutality. and the horrible things done to those boys. 3 boys at once. So it's very strange, and I've always imagined there was more than one perpetrator, which I think is another thing that makes people, look at the 3 boys, or they're men now, obviously.
So one of the, I'm gonna say it's kind of a sleeper as far as like a true crime movie, Dylan, is the Sofia Coppola film The Bling Ring.
I'm unfamiliar.
We watched this.
The Bling Ring?
It's a flashy and deeply vapid snapshot of the Hollywood Hills teenage crime ring made infamous for breaking into and robbing celebrity homes in the late 2000s. They broke into homes of Orlando Bloom.
Paris
broke
Hilton.
into Paris Hilton's home several times.
I remember
and
now.
they made fun of her because they were like, what kind of dumbass leaves their fucking mansion unlocked like all the time? All they had to do was like walk in and steal thousands of dollars in cash, shoes, bags, jewelry, cocaine. I mean, they were stealing all sorts of shit from her. And it took like 4 or 5 times before she even noticed that stuff was missing because, she's Paris Hilton.
And they're coming out with like duffel bags of, high end stuff crammed in these, expensive carry-alls and bags. And you got a lot of stuff if people can keep coming in and taking your stuff and you don't notice it.
Oh, yeah. They broke into Orlando Bloom's home, stole like several Rolex watches. I want to say it was like quite a few, like 20 Rolexes or something. The Hills, I never watched that reality show, but Audrina Partridge was one of the people on the Hills. I know they broke into her home and stole like a lot of her designer jeans. Like in the movie, they were like, oh, I guess she had like jeans that were specifically made for her.
Ooh.
And they were like stealing these jeans. Anyway, if you haven't seen it, I highly recommend it. It's kind of a fun film. It's not too, it's crime, but it's not like too serious. You're not going to be all sad at the end of it.
No,
it's killed.
Right.
Emma Watson's in it. I know we got a lot of Harry Potter fans out there, and she kind of plays this very shallow valley girl type.
I just couldn't imagine being like that or hanging out with people that are like that shallow.
You can't?
No. Can you?
Like, totally.
No. Vapid is one word I would not use to describe you.
So we recently covered the Sonny Von Bulow case here on Mountain Murders. And I would recommend one of my favorite movies based on a true crime is Reversal of Fortune, the 1990 film starring Jeremy Irons, Glenn Close. It is based on the Alan Dershowitz novel, Reversal of Fortune, Inside the Von Bulow Case. It's a docudrama. It explores the unexplained coma of Sonny Von Bulow and the attempted murder trial that would follow. It's pretty interesting, and I think it's streaming right now on HBO and Amazon Prime.
No, I enjoyed the case. It was a great story, very interesting. I've never seen that movie. You talked about it then. I do need to watch that, but I must say I am a Jeremy Irons and Glenn Close fan. So I think that I could see them two nailing those parts, those types of characters.
It's really well done. I think that you would enjoy it, Dylan, but I would say it definitely ranks in my top movies based on true crimes. Then there's the 2011 film Snowtown. Have you ever seen this?
I don't think so.
It's based on the infamous Snowtown murders in South Australia. It reveals the chilling backstory of a serial killer, John Bunting. It is told through the eyes of an unsuspecting family, the Harvey family, and it provides an inside look at Bunting's recruitment of young men into his ring of murder.
I'm telling you, Australia has some pretty wild stories as far as
Absolutely.
true crime goes. Yeah.
Another film that I really like, it was popular when it came out, but I don't think people realize it's actually based on a true story. American Hustle with Amy Adams, Bradley Cooper, Jennifer Lawrence.
Really?
Do you remember this film?
Yeah, I think so.
Well, the movie stylishly riffs on the FBI's 1970s abscam sting operation. So it's got a lot of twists, double crossings, and then of course you've got the awesome pop songs and disco dance sequences.
Yeah, it
But
always makes it better,
but
right?
it's a pretty cool movie. So if you haven't seen that, check it out because it is loosely based on a real FBI sting operation. Then there is the film Catch Me If You Can.
Ah,
I think when folks think of movies based on true crimes, they're thinking more of like the John Wayne Gacy film or a Ted Bundy movie,
right.
right? But this is a true crime. I mean, it's maybe not considered Steven Spielberg's best movie, but it ranks among the director's more entertaining movies, in my opinion. It tracks Frank Abagnale's rise as a con man. Leonardo DiCaprio is very charming. He's slimy. He plays the part like to a T. It
No,
also has Tom Hanks.
and they say that the real life Frank was that bigger than life character, just like DiCaprio portrayed. I mean, he just had guts, and he would try anything, and he would just literally talk his way in it. People just like, oh, this guy must. I mean, like put a pilot uniform on and just walk into the pilot's lounge in an
So
airport.
confident.
Yeah, and people are like, oh my, who is this guy? Even if they were unsure, his confidence alone, they would be like, well, he must be this or that, and that would, I don't know, I could not imagine doing those types of cons, those big cons. Could you pull it off?
No way.
My nerves would get me.
There's the one kind of scene in the film where he's pretending to be a lawyer or like a law student, and he's going to marry this girl from like this southern family, and like her daddy's a lawyer. And the dude goes and passes the bar and can practice law, and he's never had a fucking law class. He just studied for like a month and passed the bar.
Yeah.
So, I mean, he's a highly intelligent person.
Well, you take a person like that, if they put their energy into, something positive or good for them, there's no telling how far they could go. And that is one thing that's usually true about these types of con men they are very, very smart, typically.
I feel like you have to be.
Oh, yeah. To keep up with all
And
that
to manipulate,
and just to be able to put the air,
coordinate.
we
Because
get,
there has to be some strategy in coordinating the lies and the story and making it believable, and you have to have that personality. I mean, there's a lot that goes into that.
well, if you're going to hobnob with these moneyed people and stuff like that, and people that are highly educated, and just in small talk at a cocktail party or something, you got to be able to keep up with them. And you would have to actually know a lot of that stuff as well, no matter how you came across the information.
Another one of my favorite films, Dylan, loosely based on true crime that you may not know is based on a real character, a real person.
Okay.
Martin Scorsese's Casino.
Oh,
Now, I think this is an underrated 90s gangster effort. I feel like it does live in Goodfellas' shadow.
I think that's definitely true.
It's got Robert De Niro as a low-level mobster making his way up in the casino racket, which is based on a real person, Frank Lefty Rosenthal.
He's even got the great name.
Exactly.
Hmm.
So it's really a good film. It is loosely based on Frank's story. You've got Sharon Stone, Joe Pesci. It's just an entirely perfect cast, in my opinion.
I think in a universe where Goodfellas doesn't exist, Casino would have been a way bigger deal when it came out.
Absolutely.
Because it certainly did, just like you said it perfectly, lived in the shadow of, because, I mean, Goodfellas, it's just a work of art. It's so perfect. Every character, everybody,
It really is.
every moment,
And if you think De Niro's good as Jimmy Conway in Goodfellas, you have got to see Casino because I think it is one of De Niro's finest performances.
And mentioning those movies or Goodfellas, R.I.P. Ray Liotta.
Yeah, that was sad news that came out today.
And thank you. I loved Ray. He was great. One of the most intense actors of our generation, certainly. And he was actually working on a film when he passed. In
That's
like
terrible.
Portugal or somewhere like that. But he died peacefully in his sleep.
He seemed young.
Yeah, I know.
Ish, right?
Yeah. Well, last time or two I saw him in something, he made me feel old because, he's getting rather long in the tooth, rather, older looking, however you want to say it nicely.
Right.
But yeah, he still had that intensity, those blue eyes and that intensity. He still had it, no doubt about it.
Yeah, I always thought he was pretty sexy. Like in Goodfellas, he was a pretty hot guy.
So if somebody comes pistol whips the guy who says something bad to you across the street, that would and then comes gives you the bloody gun to hide, would that turn you on?
I would be like his wife Karen in the film. I'd be
Oh,
like, I gotta admit, I was turned on.
oh damn! You nailed that. That's perfect. That's great.
My best Lorraine Bracco.
Oh dang! You could do that.
Another film that was kind of an uncharacteristic movie for Spike Lee is Summer of Sam.
I think a lot of people forget that this is a Spike Lee movie. Honestly,
Exactly, because it's definitely a different kind of departure. It depicts the effect of the Son of Sam murders on the New York area at the time. David Berkowitz is, of course, terrorizing people in the Bronx. Spike Lee is able to weave the stories together of what's happening with the murders along with the characters in the film. John Leguizamo, I mean, he's a real deal actor, and I think he's one of those people that doesn't. He's not as famous as he should be, if that makes sense.
that's
'Cause
true.
I think he's so fucking talented, and he's in the film, and he's excellent. You have a very young, probably just starting out Adrian Brody in the film,
Who is a great actor as
right?
well.
Yeah, and it's one of those movies. I think it's almost like forgettable. Like when you think of true crime films, people aren't remembering Summer of Sam.
Well, I remember
But
when
it's really good.
it was a great movie, and I was just like, wow, I was kind of blown away by just the whole thing. And I remember a lot of people just like, I don't know, it was just like lukewarm for them, or they wasn't really into it, or they really didn't have any interest in like checking it out. But I thought it was a great movie.
It's definitely one of those films, if you haven't seen it for some years, you need to go back and rewatch it. Because it did come out like 99 or 2000. I mean, it's been a while. Go back and revisit it because I think you'll have a newfound appreciation for the film.
Well, and I think with a case like Son of Sam, that's one of the big ones. You've heard a million things about. You've heard the details over and over. So, but I did think the storytelling was refreshing to bringing these. Something I might be like, well, I know all about that.
Mira Sorvino.
Right.
I mean, it's got a pretty well-known cast. The next film we'll be discussing, Dylan, won Hilary Swank an Academy Award for her performance, and that is Boys Don't Cry.
Oh, wow, that's such a sad story.
Well, we're still dealing with transphobia today.
I think I think that movie brought that to light early on, long before it was in the front of the conversation, if you will.
Well, this movie came out over 2 decades ago, and I think it shows we still have so much to learn as a society. The true story of a trans man, Brandon Tina, takes place in a small Nebraska town. It is equally disturbing and infuriating.
I agree.
It has an all-star cast. We've got Hilary Swank, Chloe Sevigny, what's his face? I love that you're staring at me like that.
Yeah, you know me.
Peter Skarsgård. I knew it would come to me because I think he's a phenomenal actor.
Yeah.
And Brendan Sexton III. They play the best, just fucking villains in this movie.
It's true.
It's really good. I think that you should check it out if you haven't seen it. It is a film that you will carry with you forever. And especially those of us who grew up in the 90s and knew of this kind of intolerance.
Yeah, it just doesn't make sense to me, to be that mad about what someone else is doing with their own life. And I never understood I don't know. I just don't understand how people can think like that. And when I see a movie like this, and to know it's based on real people, I mean, it just really gives it some weight, I think, that normally a fictional movie would not have. And I think that's why it's great for you to go over these movies that are actually, a lot often based on real life events.
Well, they're movies that a lot of folks probably haven't seen since they came out in the theater. It's been 20 years. I thought I would make a list, give you guys some suggestions. Perhaps you'll want to go back into the archives this weekend and check out a few of these movies.
I know I will.
You will?
Oh, yeah.
Another film that is older but is still a goodie, and it's one of those that I don't think a lot of people imagine when you're talking about true crime stories, right? Is the 2001 film Bully. Now, it was an indie film, so it might be like a new film for a lot of people. You maybe haven't heard of it before.
Well, it happens a lot with the
It's
indie
super
films.
good. It's the shocking tale of revenge dramatized in the 1993 murder of Bobby Kent. Now, according to those who knew him, Kent took pleasure in the pain and humiliation of his friends, right? And subjected his long-term friend Marty Puccio to both physical and emotional abuse. Puccio's parents said he would often come home bruised and bloody after hanging out with Bobby Kent. And this further escalated after the two began going to the gym and taking steroids together.
Well, yeah, that's not going to help calm down someone who's already way over the top.
When Puccio's girlfriend Lisa Connolly set Ken up with her friend Allie Willis, Allie quickly ended things because he was both physically and sexually assaulting her. And Connolly likewise expressing that she was also abused by Bobby Kent. So, living in fear of Kent's mounting violence, a pregnant Connolly recruits her friend Allie Willis and several others to eliminate the threat once and for all.
Oh, that's a good movie.
It does. And the film does stay surprisingly close to events as they were described in the trial. 4 of the 7 convicted killers have since been released. David McKenna, the screenwriter, wasn't really happy with the final product and wanted to be credited under a pseudonym.
Oh, really?
Yeah. But director Larry Clark's ability to capture rage, rebellion of these middle-class teens, it's very confrontational. It's not as gratuitous as some of his other works. Like when you think about Larry Clark, you might think of the film Kids, right?
Right, which that was over the top.
Yeah. So it's not as gratuitous as like those works, but it's still a very powerful film.
Well, yeah, I mean, and obviously taking the law into your own hands like that is not okay and not a good thing to do. But, you know, and when you're young and you have a situation like this, I think sometimes you end up where you don't know that anyone will help you or can make this person stop. And it seems like that kid was the classic movie bully, like, you know, trope in real life.
Oh, yeah.
And I just, we've talked about this before amongst ourselves. I just didn't picture that type of, or I never saw that type. I'm not saying I never saw bullying, but it's just full on every day in, day out. I know it happens. I'm not discounting it, certainly. But just, my God, it's torturous to a person to know they have to deal with this damn person. And if they reach out to school, administrators, teachers, parents, whoever, and never get any relief, it only gets worse. I mean, gosh, at a certain point, what do you expect
Well,
someone to
that.
do? You know, I mean, honestly, it doesn't make it right, but I understand kind of, you know, why you would go down that path, I think.
I've just never understood bullies and how they operate and why you would choose to live your life being that kind of person.
No.
Like, I can never wrap my head around it. Even as a kid, as a teenager, I would look at these. I mean, because I got bullied like relentlessly in middle school.
Well, you said you knew kids, other females who would actually just walk past you in the hall, shove you into a locker, you know, or slam you into the wall and just say dumb, you know, mean shit to you constantly.
They would push me and be like, "You hippie," and I was totally not a hippie. Like, I would be like, "You don't even know what subculture I'm part of. I'm like a punk rocker, bro."
Yeah, hippies don't dress like this.
No, but you know, I'd be in like my Doc Martens, my ripped up shirts, looking all grunged out, like I wanted to be Courtney Love when I was a young teenager. I
Right.
would just get bullied by these girls, and they were girls in the 90s who still had the big fucking Camaro hair. and like tight rolling their jeans and shit, like bad out of style, right?
Right.
And I was just like, why do you care what I wear? Like, why does that matter to you so much? And I would just be looking at them like, how is this fun for you?
How do you put this much energy and
Yeah, why do
effort?
you care? And I would always say that when they'd be like, you hippie, look at you wearing your combat boots, hippie. And I would just be like, why do you care?
You know, it's
Why
funny
does it matter to you so much?
when people are off with their insults, and it just like it would make you feel better about it if they were a little more accurate or
Well, I
smart
would
with their
just,
comments.
well, I would laugh at them and say, you don't even know you don't even have your subcultures correct. So why don't you figure out what's what and come back?
Yeah, get some proper put downs because this is not working.
Yeah.
Right.
Just because, yeah, you dress differently, that makes you a hippie. I don't know. I never got that, but I was living in rural Appalachia, so there's that, I guess.
Well, there's that. That probably happens to this day. You know.
Oh, it does. My daughter gets teased
Yeah.
for having colored hair,
Well,
which is like so common.
well, it's I don't get it. You know, I've been in the store with you, and some little knuckleheaded ass, burr-headed ass kid be like, "Oh, her hair green, mama," yeah, and just like, what is wrong with you? Where do you live at? Because this is fairly common.
Under a rock?
This is fairly common. Women of all ages, men, nowadays, you know, it's way more prevalent, and it's just like, what freaking holler did y'all drain out of?
Right. I mean, back when I was 13, walking around with pink hair, yeah, that was a little unusual for this area.
Well, that's yeah.
But now everybody has colored hair. You can buy the damn colored hair dye at Walmart.
Well, it's like your daughter did get Bella. She got a job at Ingles, and they're like, "Oh, you got to do something about that hair." I'm like, I don't care if the cashier person has colored hair or not. I'm just trying to get these high priced ass groceries, dude.
Exactly.
You know, they're like presenting some image, or I've never once walked in a fast food joint or something and be like, that person's shirt was untucked. My God, you know, this service.
I could never eat here because this person has green hair and a tattoo.
I'm paying $2 for a burger and I want it in like 3 minutes. You know, that is my standard. And if you stick to that and get it all in the right bag, you know, the right food in the bag, I'm happy. Jesus. The standards of people, and it's oftentimes standards that don't exist, but they're like self-imposed. And it like, I don't know, I guess it makes them feel like they're doing something. I don't get it.
I don't get it either. We're going to end with the 2003 film Party Monster.
Ha ha.
Again, another one of my favorite films.
Oh, yeah.
Starring Macaulay Culkin. Now, if you're not familiar with Party Monster, the New York club scene of the 80s and 90s was synonymous with like outrageous style, loud, all-nighters, every drug under the sun. And there was a party organizer and somewhat of a celebrity at the time, Michael Alec. He was one of the few elite club kids. You probably saw them on Jenny Jones.
Geraldo
back in the day.
Yeah, it was oh gosh, it just shocked people that, you know, they have these outlandish costumes and wearing all this I mean, back then especially all this, you know, kind of they, you know, embraced androgyny and yeah, it was pretty
super
wild.
over the top, and they were paid crazy amounts of money to turn up at events and party. It was like having these influencers come to your event.
They were real life
almost.
influencers.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And there was a book called Disco Bloodbath by a club kid named James St. James, who describes Michael Alec's downfall. He was, you know, hosting these parties, living it up, whatever, and then ends up murdering his drug dealer and sometimes roommate, a guy named Angel Melendez.
It just made no sense over like a small amount of money if I'm, you know, to be, you know, something like that, right? Something stupid. And just threw everything away. And I must say, one of our prized possessions is a piece of art sent to us by a listener, and it is a signed Michael Alec poster.
It's a print.
It's a print, and
Like
it's signed.
A limited edition signed print.
And not long after we received this special thing that we will always cherish, he passed away.
He did die of an accidental heroin overdose on Christmas Eve in 2020. So, Michael Alec ended up serving a 17-year prison sentence. He was released in 2014. And, he claims that much of the drug use was actually toned down in the film compared to what they were actually doing back then.
Jeez Louise.
So he's like, as much as you see people doing drugs in the movie, it's nothing compared to what we were really doing. Yeah.
Well, and that I'm sure is what led to this situation and hot tempers and skewed perceptions and all that. And I'm sure that could be directly linked back to the massive amounts of, and they were getting into like ketamine and psychedelics and the coke and all that mess, and that's some pretty heavy stuff. So I guess I could see you ending up in some out of control situation.
Quite possibly, yes. And then, of course, heroin doesn't seem to do a body good ever.
No, I just
say no.
No, say no.
Okay, Dylan. Well, that wraps up my list of true crime movies you need to check out or movies based on true crimes for this week. We could do multiple parts, like this episode in multiple parts, because there's so many films out there.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we'll keep it going.
All right. Well, thanks for tuning in. We'll be back on Sunday with a brand new case. Any last thoughts, Dylan?
I hope everybody has a good time.
We're going to go stream a movie now, right?
Yeah, I want to check out some of those movies.
How about Summer of Sam?
Let's do
Let's
it.
find it. Okay, bye.